Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, get your pen and your pads ready because my guest today is going to show you how all the RNs now are millionaires and why they're driving Bentleys. She has Green Governance Consulting, and she also has Canna Health. She is out of Connecticut, and I want you to make sure that whatever she tells you, that you check the laws and consult with a lawyer in your state and region because the rules can change. This is Cannabis Talk, y'all, and I have Kebra Smith-Bolden. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, I just want you to get in and just let people know what you have because what you have is, you have a franchise type model for and you're consulting for people and you can help them secure the bag. So I know all the medical professionals are like, wait, how are the RNs becoming millionaires? You know, talk about it.
Well, let me just first clarify something so I don't get anybody trying to knock me over the head. I have yet to make millions of dollars. I'm still growing and ever going forward, hopefully. But soon come, my millions soon come. Um, but yes, so my name is Kebra Smith-Bolden. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. Which is, even though people don't believe, a lot of people didn't even know there were Black people in Connecticut, believe it or not. But there are also, pretty rough neighborhoods here. And I grew up in kind of like a crossroads between two neighborhoods, went to a school that kind of was a catchment for all areas of New Haven. And I grew up in the height of the war on drugs. I was in high school in the 90s and, really wanted to, it was always in me to want to make a difference in my community because I was raised by community minded folks. But I became a nurse and started working in the community and really wasn't as woke or conscientious as I feel like I am now because I was just in the going through the routine, not really recognizing the areas in which um, we as a community, we as a people struggle and the reasons for that. And cannabis helped to enlighten me. How I got into the industry you want me to go into that right now?
Yeah, and I want you to clarify because someone said, I told you smoking helps enlighten you and brings you to the next level.
Who said?
So go into all of that.
Okay, so I never was a smoker, even though I grew up in the 90s in the inner city community. I never was into it. I believe that the first time I consumed cannabis or attempted to, was when I was in high school. And there was no effect. I didn't feel high. It seemed like a waste. I have since learned that I was not consuming or actually inhaling properly. So that was the reason. But because of that, I never was into it. I had a lot of friends who would consume cannabis on a regular basis, and back then, of course, I was calling it weed. um and fast forward to throughout life, I became a nurse. I was married. I had 4 children, and so I had just begun working in my community, working in the communities that no other nurses wanted to go to. And suddenly, my grandmother, who I alluded to earlier, who was a civil servant, worked in the community, well known, and respected and loved by many, but especially me as her granddaughter. She was struck with an aneurysm at a funeral. She luckily there were service workers there, firefighters, a lot of people from the city, so they saved her life. They were able to save her life, and she went into the ICU and into a facility for rehabilitation. And when she was ready to be discharged, she could not live alone. because this woman who was 88 but vibrant, working still and volunteering in community, had a boyfriend, driving, was her mind was totally devastated in her body by this aneurysm. And so she was wheelchair bound. She was not talking much and engaging with their family. She wasn't eating. She wasn't sleeping. She was falling. Like, it was so many things going on. So she came to live with me and my family. Being that I'm a home care nurse, we got her great in-home care, including physical therapy. And I knew my grandmother would want to be better. I had no doubt in my mind, but she would not participate in physical therapy. And I really couldn't understand, like, why isn't she trying? And I tell people all the time that God is in the cannabis business, because I'm a praying person. And I was praying and I said, God, show me how to help my grandmother. And like that, it came to me that my grandmother had told me maybe a decade before in passing, that she used to smoke a little weed to help with her arthritic pain. And she would take a bath every day to just kind of be able to get her joints and her body to move. So we started doing some, heat therapy in the morning. And then I found out that her caregiver was a cannabis smoker, a cannabis consumer. And so I was like, all right, let's get grandma high. And that's what we did. We got her high. I don't know how. I wasn't there. But when within a month, my grandmother was walking with the walker, talking, engaged, eating, and was really starting to become back to herself. And because of that turnaround and how quickly I saw improvements after being a nurse and never seeing improvements in mostly anybody, I was like, I need to study this plant, and look at it in a different way than I had been looking at it as a person who grew up around it and, had friends who smoked it, but really didn't know. So I found this school in Massachusetts, and it was about 2 hours away. So I would work all week to caring for my grandmother and going up to Massachusetts and just taking this 12-course study. It dealt with everything from the medicine that is cannabis to the science of cannabis and the endocannabinoid system and how it works in the body. But what really engaged me in this movement, this industry, in this industry was the fact that I looked at the history of cannabis, and that for hundreds of thousands of years, it was used as medicine. And then when a gentleman, Harry Anslinger, and I say gentleman loosely, he ran out of things to do because he was a prohibitionist, and he worked on enforcing the prohibition of alcohol. And when alcohol was made legal, he needed something to do. So he decided to focus on cannabis and marijuana, and it seemed to be fit his profile because he was a professed racist. So he was able to use the criminalization and creating an illegal space for cannabis to criminalize blacks and Mexicans. And then this continued and perpetuated over the years up to Nixon and the war on drugs with all these things. And many people, especially black and brown people, have had their career in the criminal system start with a $5 bag of weed, and then that led to difficulty getting employment, and that led to having to resort to other means to make money to support their families, et cetera, et cetera. And this all fed the mass incarceration system. So really looking at this and looking at science and looking at the fact that it's medicine, and knowing that the only reason why this became illegal was just to be able to put black and brown bodies in the system and to criminalize them, I wanted to make a difference and do something about that. And I knew that as a black woman, it would be, first of all, I knew that this industry was going to be $1 billion industry, and that as a Black woman, it would be difficult for me to really engage in this industry without a couple of things. So the education I received was really important, but also the organizations that I connected to were also important. And I connected with Women Grow, which is a national networking organization that helps women and women of color specifically get in the cannabis industry. And so I was completely engaged, started to go to their monthly meetings, decided to open up a Women Grow in Connecticut, and have these networking events so that I could educate my community about cannabis. And at my very first networking event, I was introducing myself as a nurse and, a cannabis enthusiast at the time. And as I was going around, I was telling people I wanted to open a dispensary, and almost everyone said, "But you're a nurse. You should do something with your nursing degree." And so I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I ended up talking to a doctor, and then Canna Health was born. And Canna Health is a group of medical cannabis certifying centers where we help people essentially get their weed cards, their medical marijuana cards, their medical cannabis cards in the state. And we started very small and have grown over the years. But from the beginning, because of the fact that I had to create this space for myself, because of the fact that I didn't have millions of dollars, I didn't have a bunch of people who would invest in me to open up a dispensary or open up a grow facility, and because it was difficult, to even get those licenses, even if I had the money, I wanted to create a lane for people like me, who want to be in this industry, who want to be owners in this industry, because that is part of, social justice is ownership. And so I wanted to create that. And so Canna Health seemed like the perfect model, and so I opened up the first clinic, kind of perfected things, and was able to learn how to scale and make a duplicate, a model that someone can duplicate. And we opened up a second Canna Health in Hartford, Connecticut, after our first one in New Haven, Connecticut. And then I created a licensing program. I didn't want to do a franchise because a franchise was a little too much copy and paste. I wanted people to have autonomy and feel like they actually owned their Canna Health. And so I did a licensing model where they can use my name, my brand, my mode of operation, my model, and open up their own Canna Health. And I got to say that I was primarily interested in having women become owners, especially women of color. And unfortunately, I have not had people of color step up and really go forward with the process. We were in talks with some people in Georgia, some people in New York before the COVID-19 pandemic hit us. And so that has stalled some things. But again, this has always been from the beginning about creating owners in this industry, creating the ability to say that I'm engaged in this $1 billion industry. I belong here, and this is what I'm offering.
And that is all great stuff. And I just want to clarify for people that, all that she is doing is getting people qualified, because one of the big barriers, and I live in Seattle currently, and moving to the state of Florida shortly, but I'm from California, so I saw growing up, even in high school, the big push. Even though I did not smoke, I saw the big push. And the thing for us, for dispensaries, and I've seen it, and I used to say everyone but one person here in the state of Washington, because our weed czar is actually a Black woman. She's the most powerful Black woman in this state of Washington. And but everybody else that wasn't connected to her in one way or another, we'd see them get raided. And, you know, maybe that's a coincidence. Now things have changed, but I saw the same thing in California where, you know, you don't pay your tax. That's a street term. You know, you got to pay certain people not to get raided, because people go to life. I mean, go to jail for life for this if they do it the wrong way. And so a lot of folks, you know, want to get in the industry, but you also have to put a risk. It seems like you don't have any risk, that the feds can't come to you. So that's why I love what you're doing. And that's why I see your Bentley. I mean, I see it. It's just not parked in your garage, but it's coming, right? With the driver. So with not taking the risk, can you let people know what are, you know, if they get into this and they reach out to you, what are, you know, the realistic expectations money wise? They can see on the website for, you know, $200, you know, they can get qualified, but how much does it cost to do a licensing deal with you? And also, what are some of the barriers that, you know, will limit them, or what are some of the things that will, you know, push them, like having an RN like you do? So yeah, give us a game.
So, truth be told, so let me just reinforce what you just said. You're absolutely right. There is no license that's needed or required to open a can of help. You don't have to have a huge lump sum to get into this. Right now, in the state of Connecticut, any licensee, which I'm no longer taking anymore in Connecticut, we have 6. Connecticut's a pretty small state. That's enough. Like we try to keep can of help at least 30 miles apart from each other. And so we're about at the max here. But in the state of Connecticut, a licensee, the licensing fee was $10,000. So not a whole lot of money. And that was even kind of negotiable, not the amount, but how it was paid. And there's a profit share every month. And so outside of the state will be around the same, just a little more money. And that it depends, but I'm gonna use the figure of 15,000 because that's basically where we what we've agreed to with people that we've been in talks to. And that is just because of the fact that in Connecticut I can drive anywhere within an hour. You know, if it's outside of the state and someone needs my support or needs me to be involved, that's just to facilitate that. And make sure that I'm able to be of a support to them and you know, maximize my time while still allowing them to get the full benefit of, you know, my expertise and input and the Canna Health brand.
Okay. Now you're done with Connecticut. I used to live, I got married in Springfield, Massachusetts. And so I know the laws can change. So somebody from Springfield, and you know Springfield is a mob city anyway, can the same thing be done in Springfield, Massachusetts, or the law is totally different? And if not, where else can a Health be built?
Okay, so Canna Health can actually be anywhere that has at least medical cannabis laws. Um, Actually, Canna Health can be in any state, whether they have laws or not. It would change what you're doing. So Canna Health not only certifies people and gets them their cards, but we also provide education about the plant, about the endocannabinoid system, about legalization and utilizing those funds to reinvest in communities. So you can open up a Canna Health and just be providing education, and that can solely be, you know, you charge a little bit something for classes, or you're, you know, so that's something that you could do. We have a curriculum that you can buy into and utilize as part of your brand. In a state that has medical cannabis, though, is the most ideal, because in addition um, to educating people, you can also certify them and get them their cards. And so in a state that is legally is allows for legal adult use, that would limit the people, you know, that would reduce the amount of people who will likely want to get their card. But there are people who, for medical reasons, want to have that card to say, my doctor said, or a doctor said that this is necessary. This is why I'm consuming it. And so, there is always still that need for the medical program. But the only other caveat is who can actually do the certification. So although I'm a registered nurse, I can't prescribe. That's beyond my scope. So in Connecticut, advanced practice registered nurses are allowed to certify. So I hire advanced practice registered nurses, family nurse practitioners, psychiatric APRNs to actually do the certifications. Some states only allow for medical doctors to do certifications. Some states allow for telehealth, or they did on a regular basis before. Now, almost every state is allowing for telehealth because of COVID. But like New York was a state that allowed for telehealth, and Connecticut didn't. So it all depends on what the laws are in the state, how you can create and cater your Canna Health to your state's laws and the requirements necessary.
And what type of, profits are being seen? I know I've talked about, the big luxury, but there is a lot of money in this. Yeah. So let the people know, what the average for what you've already experienced, in Canna Health, what they could be looking at, because I think a lot of nurses don't want to go in anymore. And so they might say, how do I, not go in the hospital anymore? I don't want to do through COVID-19, 20 or 55. So can I replace my nurse salary?
So I still work as a nurse, and I'm trying to plug in my phone. My computer. Hold on, because it's dying.
Okay, no, you're good, and you also might have a heart for people. But extra money. Every nurse will take an extra shift and some extra money.
Yeah, I honestly do more give back than I actually take in, to be honest with you. And I definitely think that you can figure out, like, so on average we see about 20 to 25 patients a week, and we get anywhere between $125 to $200 a patient. So there is definitely opportunity to make money. You take a state like Georgia, specifically the Atlanta area, where there are a lot of consumers and a lot of people who are arrested simply or engage with the police simply because of marijuana or cannabis. So that will be, once a Canna Health or a certifying center of some sort opens in Atlanta, it's going to be super profitable because there are people who need to have their cards, because all of the things that I do, everything, and you didn't mention one of my businesses, which is a home care company, is about job creation, opportunity creation, and really being able to reinvest in people in my community and give them options and keep them safe. And part of safety is eliminating or decreasing the interactions that they have with police. And if someone's on probation or parole and they consume cannabis to deal with the trauma related to prison, the trauma related to growing up in the hood, whatever that is, it's necessary that we reduce their interactions with the police, that we reduce the state or the state's ability to send these people back to prison. And they violate people for cannabis all the time, but if they have the medical card, they can't be violated. So, again, as far as profit margins, I'm not going to talk about that necessarily, but you can kind of figure it out if you run your business and manage it appropriately and hire the right people and have a nice balance of staff. I've already laid out the foundation. All you got to do is work it.
And somebody heard that and they said, wait, that's a $16,000 month. But a lot of people, and this is why I think sometimes we don't get into businesses, because we don't understand that a $16,000, what you've made a month isn't what you get to take home. So I really like to be realistic about, okay, you have to pay people. You have to pay taxes. So with that, you can replace, somebody's salary with that amount of money. But I get sometimes frustrated because with the different businesses that I have, and you have a home care, we're going to talk about that because I'm just opening up a companion care. You know, people think you're going to make, 6 figures minimum in all your businesses. And so they really are going to, look at you as, can I get a loan? But can you talk about, if you do have a $16,000 or a $60,000 month, everything that goes into that, because I just like to educate the people, and I don't want it to come from me always that, where your profit margins should lie, or what do you do? Do you have a team of people that help you with your finances?
So to be totally honest with you, the first couple of years that we were in business, we didn't make much money. We made enough money to keep the doors open and continue on another day. And that's the reality of any new business. Most new businesses aren't profitable in the first 3 to 4 to 5, 6, 7 years. A lot of people, a lot of businesses. And so it's important that you prepare for that. I honestly, so I have a couple of different ways of thinking. I mean, I think that you are placed on the path that you're supposed to be on if you're in tune and willing to accept that path. And and because of that, then things work out for you. I also believe though that you should plan and be responsible and make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you go forward with certain ventures and projects and businesses. For me, I sacrificed everything. I was a nurse and still am, but at the time, like I was unable to work because places weren't too pleased with the fact that I was on the news and I was talking about cannabis all around the world to everybody. And they didn't feel like that was a good representation of what they wanted as a nurse. So while I was building this business, I was unable to work. I was unable to pay my mortgage. I was unable to do the things that I needed to do, but I felt so strongly about what I was doing within this industry that I kept pushing forward. Now, I don't suggest that for people. I don't suggest that people, sacrifice it all. But I do suggest that if you feel like you're on a path that you are destined to pursue, then you do whatever it is that you need to do. But yes, there are definitely bills associated with businesses. There are definitely responsibilities that you have to the state, to the federal government, to your customers and patients, to your employees, and all of that costs. Most of my licensees um, open and operate Canna Health once a week and are able and use it as a way to supplement their income as they're building and growing.
Okay. And is it something that, can it be a business that is open? Let's say a nurse is working 3 days out of a week, but she's doing, her 12s, and then she takes the rest of the time where she's like, hey, I'm open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You do that?
So I solely own and manage 2 locations. The other 4 are in partnership with my licensees. And we are only open, I don't think any of my licensees are open more than 1 day a week. So I have an office manager that is in the office 3 days a week and twice a week in my Hartford location. But that's just because I'm managing all of the locations and keeping up with all of the scheduling and all of the stuff. So I take on that extra expense. But the licensees are open 1 day a week. We're open for 4 hours that 1 day, and we're able to see up to 20, 30 patients in a day.
Okay,
So we
no.
low in that regard.
Can that, I mean, if you're doing 1 day a week, can that also be like a mobile van where you just have people step in? Can you do that?
Mhm.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay. I'm getting the game, y'all, because you can do this
And that was
anywhere.
the reason for me doing the licensing model as opposed to the franchise, because you could just take. I have worked tirelessly since 2017 for the last 3 years building this brand, making it reputable, showing people what we do and how we do it and what we do it for, and that's for people to have access to safe plant-based medicine. So because of the fact that I've laid the foundation, you can take my name, put it on the side of your van, and start doing, mobile certifications, and that could be your business model. You can go 100% telehealth and never actually interact, have a brick and mortar. Beyond, we have a medical record system that has telehealth integrated. So you can just connect your clinician of the day, whether that be a physician or an APRN, with the patients and provide before and after education. And bam, that's your business model. And you don't even have to pay rent anywhere. You're doing it from home. So there are a few different ways that you can execute a can of health for sure.
And how does Canna Health? I know you have some of the the materials in your teaching and the curriculum, but for someone who's listening and say, okay, I'm in Florida, all the doctors have their names on the taxi cabs and they're going through, how do I compete, because I still have to go get a doctor in my state to do this, even though I can do it telehealth. Does Canna help provide any physicians that will help them with this?
So no, I mean, now that's you are required to get your own personnel. I can help with that process, help with the interview process, help to identify viable candidates based on what I've seen and how people interact with clinicians and office staff. But it's your business, so you're responsible for hiring your own staff, for training your own staff with my assistance. Though, I do provide training, at least for the initial core group of employees, and then it's the owner's responsibility to make sure that new people and people are educated on an ongoing basis. But so no, I don't provide doctors. But I will say that, like, every state that I have been engaging in conversations with people about opening Canna Health in are states that are states that I have relationships in. So there will be opportunities for synergy, for connections, just because of the national organizations that I'm connected to, from Women Grow to the National Cannabis Industry Association to Minority Cannabis Industry Association, for the Cannabis Nurse Network, for the American Cannabis Nursing Association, like all and oh, let me not forget to um, um, M for MM, Minorities for Medical Marijuana. So, like, between those networks of organizations, and I'm probably forgetting even naming some, there are ways to make sure that you have what you need and you have the connections to the proper people in your state. Normal. I forgot about normal.
Okay. My next thing, if you said you provided, doctors, I was going to say, hey, do you provide lawyers too? So that they can all bug you and say, hey, I got jammed up, because I didn't do what you said. But no, you are on your own, people. And, Kebra, tell me, I mean, that means African queen, correct?
It means sort of close. It means glory of a king, which usually would be his queen, but yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Translation is in. Okay. I get my languages and whatever mixed up. Is there any way that Canna Health? I love. I have investment in Africa. I am Africa. I'm a part of Africa. Is there any way where this can go to Africa and they can benefit?
Uh, so I'd say absolutely. I've actually had several, conversations with people from different parts of Africa interested in taking advantage of this opportunity and really starting to educate the community about medical cannabis, to grow it, to have, because that can be a commodity, a source of income for an entire community. Like that could be, a place where people not only can consume it, but they're growing it, they're manufacturing it, they're extracting it and making it into edibles and vapes, and these are all, they're delivering it. They're all different types of, or they're all different kinds of micro businesses that can spring off from this industry, and African countries are no different, and are interested. They wanted to partake in this industry as well. They just have been reaching out because they lack the knowledge and understanding, to be able to go forward.
Well, if you come up with something and you can think of it direct, let me know. I have a new website that it's not perfected, but it is a wealth of information for any investment or anything you want to do on the continent from people who I've spoke with, do business with, or have vetted. But it's mall for Africa is the domain. And I would love if you figure something out, because in Malawi, I mean, that's known to have the most potent cannabis. And the reason why, because people will listen to me and they'll say, man, Kellen, I thought you were the scripture guy and you were whooping them with the scriptures. I whoop them with everything. But I remember my mother, who hated drugs, who when she was in her last fight for cancer, she tried, she tried it. And she's like, I'm going to try this. I'll call you back at an hour. And when she called, she's like, how am I supposed to feel? And I can still kind of laugh at those memories because she had no clue of how she was supposed to feel. She just knew she felt better. And so that, is something that is why we're going to push this, because this is not, oh, I'm just going to toke up just because. And if that's what you want to do, fine. If you're not hurting anybody, who I don't care about that. But certain people have conditions they haven't even found out. For all we know, this could cure COVID, right? And so, if you find anything, I'd love to, in the future, pull you in and even say, hey, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Because if you haven't been to Africa, you'll never want to leave if you go the right way.
Africa, and as you pointed out, I have an Ethiopian name, an African name, and I want to go to Ethiopia first because that is where my name comes from. But there's a lot of ties to cannabis, of course, through Ethiopia, and so I'm really interested in that. But I do already have a plan and a program now. I mean, and it's about educating. It all starts with education. That's point number one. And if I'm nothing, I am a cannabis educator. And just coming in and helping to break down some of the stereotypes, helping to help people understand that you don't just have to smoke it. There's many other ways that you can implement this into your daily regimen. That doesn't mean one way or another. There are different strains, different terpenes, different cannabinoid profiles, and all these things are areas in which we can educate people about the plant, and then educate people about the opportunities and businesses that can come from this industry, or that are within this industry.
No, that's beautiful, and all you have to do is say the word in September when they open up the borders. Ethiopia is a beautiful place.
I heard.
Yeah, and there's so many layers to Ethiopia. I haven't discovered them or seen them all. Talking like an American, discovered them. It's been there before us, right? But I mean, Ethiopia from, I'll say, Addis Ababa to Mekelle, which Mekelle I like a lot better than Addis Ababa, just because Addis is a big city. There is so much for those who are preparing now. And the Rastafarians. I spoke to one of them in Addis, and they can do whatever they want in their section of the Ethiopia, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. So we'll talk more because I might get a little too loose, and then folks will look at this interview and say, "Wow, okay." But Africa is the now and it's the future, and so it's a beautiful thing with all of your.
Go to Africa for my birthday, which is in October. So that was the plan before all this happened. So we'll see if it still happens, but I'm definitely going within the next 12 months.
Well, this is the best time to, if you haven't bought your ticket already, because tickets are so cheap.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into it. A girlfriend of mine, Jane Green, Tanjanika, she's out of Georgia. She works in the cannabis industry, and our birthdays are both in October. So that was gonna be our birthday gifts to ourselves. So maybe we'll start looking now.
I might have to attach myself with a cameraman for you as a work trip. Just let it be known. We'll make a whole documentary.
Make it work. We ready.
Yeah, yeah. Let me tell my camera guy, come on, they're ready. Yes, yes. We for one of my clients, his first documentary was in Ethiopia, and we went to the AU and did all that. So, unjust perceptions. It's on Amazon and all that.
Okay, I'd love to see it. What's the name of it?
I'm going to send it to you. It's called Unjust Perceptions Ethiopia. I'll send it to you. It's on YouTube as well.
Okay.
But I'll send you a direct link because when you start talking about Africa, I start getting excited in a different way. Let me ask you, with all the success that you're having and that you're gonna have, what is your community give back that you're doing or that you want to do in the future?
So from the very beginning, even when I couldn't pay my mortgage and I had to turn my BMW in, I've always offered a discounted rate for the medical cannabis certifications for veterans because they definitely have served our nation, and we owe them a debt. But then not only veterans from war, but veterans of this war on drugs. So anyone who is receives any type of medical, public or government assistance, or can prove that they are currently on probation or parole, or who are currently in a halfway house or recently released from prison, they get a discounted rate. So that's where the 125 comes from. So that has been from the beginning, from the beginning of the start of Canna Health. But what I do in addition is we do a lot of give back. So I'm constantly, supporting causes and organizations, locally and some on a national level that do the work that I respect and appreciate outside of cannabis, from juvenile justice reform, which I serve on my city's juvenile review board. And so that is a way that we can intercept and interrupt someone who's beginning to go down the wrong path and help them see what is happening and help to figure out why and put them on a path that will lead to success as opposed to the path that they're on going towards prison. But like I said, in addition to all of that though, I work with I created Connecticut United for Reform and Equity, and with some partners, and what we do is we make sure that the laws that are being written regarding medical cannabis in states as they're considering legalization, that they are written that include expungement of records, that they include getting people out of prison, that they include community reinvestment. So if you are a billion-dollar company that wants to open up shop in the inner city, you're paying your taxes and your dues to that city that was once, destroyed by the war on drugs. And again, privately, I'm trying to be a philanthropist. That's my heart's desire, is to make enough money to just support the causes and people and communities that are near and dear to my heart. And so I've just started doing that. So every week, people don't even know this, I'm telling something that I do things. I'm not even gonna go into detail because again, it's about it's about my give back, and it's not about any glory. I don't want anything from it, but yes, I give back to the community every often.
Okay, and you don't want your right hand to know what the left is doing all the way. We just wanted to show that when you do have success, one thing that's never happened, I've never had someone say, I don't give anything back, or I don't plan to ever give anything back. If you are, you're probably like the president of the United States, 45, and you're giving it to your own, and that's, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, but also that you do offer paid consulting. So I want people to make sure, don't let that friendly face and that nice demeanor think that you can just call her and ask her 100 questions. She has the greengovernancconsulting.com phone number on there, and that's paid consulting. So we're not going to give it
specific about green governance, because we really didn't talk about it. Green governance is a cannabis related policy consulting company. So the average individual wouldn't just call us for consulting. This would be like a school system who has very clear policies surrounding mothers or fathers who come to pick their children up, and they are obviously inebriated with alcohol or something, you can smell it, whatever, but they don't have those policies surrounding cannabis and what they need to do. And so the function of green governance is to help companies, organizations, police departments come up with policies that are based on facts, not just the stereotypes and myths, but are based on facts that help to protect the public. So they not only provide insight to how the plant works, and then those policies are created because because of that, but they also are policies that eliminate discrimination. So there's no way that the white soccer mom can be on the cover of High Times saying, I consume cannabis as I drop my kids off for their soccer practice, and they're perfectly fine. But a black mother who is definitely dealing with trauma, with anxiety, with depression, and medicating herself can't even be can't be found to have it without having to worry about her children being taken. So it's to create equity in policy creation.
Awesome, awesome. I cannot wait for your book to go on Amazon when you write it, because it's going to be full of information. I don't want to give the folks the game overload, and the audience, I want to talk to her off air about something. I can't talk to y'all. I don't want you to hear it. So I thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Y'all be blessed. Make sure you share this with someone.